Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
Kimar Roach, and I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed you are. Indeed you are. Welcome to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. My name is Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And I'm here to review day one of the first test match between Australia and the West Indies. And of course, are we looking forward? I guess looking forward to day two of the test match. The time right now is 9:42 in the UK PM. The next day of the test will begin in approximately just under 5 hours, maybe 4 and a bit hours, okay, until day two starts. It's a really late in the day for me to drop this video, but I was so busy and I just didn't have time to do anything else and drop it any earlier. So apologies for the delay on that, people, but here I am all the same, ready to drop some new content for you. So first things first, all the admin, you can see it on the ticker tape below. You can find the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook. I always forget to mention that. Just search Caribbean Cricket Podcast to be part of the Facebook group. And we're on the road to 4K subscribers on YouTube. So make sure you click like, share, and subscribe and all of that jazz. Click that notification button as well, so you always know when some Caribbean Cricket podcast content is available for you to watch. So like I say, lastly, you can also support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket for as little as $2, £2 a month to help us keep going and, do this content, help support in terms of buying equipment, this, that, and the other. So let's jump into it. The end of day one, Australia ended the day on 293 for 2 after 90 overs. Hands down, Australia's day. There can be no doubt about it. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, as West Indian fans, should we be despondent about day one? Should we say, well, you know what, we stuck to the task manfully. We were professional and diligent with our bowling, and it just is what it is. Or is this just expectations? Is this what you expected? I mean, I'll say it from the jump. I thought this would be the case. Santoki and I, if you haven't listened already, Santoki and I dropped episode 38 of West Indies on 99.94 DM. I'll put the link in the YouTube description below. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, do go and watch that, because we recorded that before day one started. And we kind of spoke about what we expect to happen in the test series in general. And Santoki and I basically said, Australia will probably get to a stage where they're like 400 for 2. And that's not to say we wouldn't be bowling well. I genuinely believe the bowlers stuck to their task quite well throughout day one. But we're in Aussie conditions with the Kookaburra ball. Some of our bowlers, Roston Chase, Alzari Joseph, Jaden Seals, Kyle Mayers, have never gone on an Australian test tour before. So these are all unfamiliar conditions for the players, for quite a lot of the players. Only 4 of the current 11 have ever toured Australia before for a test series. So this is what I kind of always expected. I'm not like, oh, woe is us, and oh my God, the test match is already over. Yeah, we're up against it. I think it would be fair to say that the best we can hope for at this stage now is that we take the match to day 5. That would be really good if we could take the match to day 5. But you have to assume that we're already basically out of this match, certainly from a winning it perspective. And it's only a very, very, very faint chance that we can draw this test match, because we're under the pump already. So yeah, let's look at the scorecard for the Aussies. David Warner went way back at the start of the day. Inside the 4th over, David Warner dragged one onto his stumps from Jaden Seals. Star boy Jaden Seals picking up a maiden wicket in Australia. And then, let me just find it. Then Usman Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne put on a partnership of 142 from 292 balls. Khawaja eventually went for let me find my scorecard again, for 65. Carl Mayers came on, got one to just nibble a bit outside the off stump, and Khawaja nicked through to De Silva. But then, of course, Stephen Smith then came to the wicket, and him and Marnus Labuschagne also put on a partnership of 142, and that partnership is currently unbeaten. So Marnus Labuschagne has hit 154, not out, from 270 balls, and Stephen Smith is 59 not out from 107 balls. It is all rather ominous in terms of what is likely to happen on day 2. I would assume that Australia are going to make 293 for 2 going into day 2. They should be making, I reckon they'll make 550 plus, and they'll declare. That's what I'm expecting to happen on the second day of the Test match. Australia to make 550 plus and declare. So maybe like 550 for 7, 550 for 8, and then I think they'll declare and have a little pop at us in the last hour of the day, last half hour of the day, etc. And then that's when the Test will really, really begin for us. But that said, the Aussies made 293 for 2 off 90 overs. So the run rate was only 3.25, right? And I say only because, again, I have to state that Aussies are in their home conditions. They're used to the Kookaburra ball. And yes, they made hay, but they didn't. I hope people understand what I mean by this. 293 for 2 off 90 overs. They're well on top, but I don't feel like they blew us away. It wasn't like our bowlers just bowled trash throughout the day. I think they could have been a little fuller. I do think they could have attacked the stumps more or bowled more balls that attack the stumps. Jared Kimber released an article earlier today. Let me see if I can find it whilst I'm talking to you. He released a really good article today. Let me find the stat that he gave. If you haven't subscribed to his Substack, go subscribe to Jared Kimber's Substack. It's called Jared Kimber's Sports Almanac. But anyways, the point is, on day 1, here we go. The Australians left 34% of the West Indian balls. Now, some of you might listen to that and be like, "Well, that's awful." Sorry, that's really good. That means West Indians were bowling tight lines, but it was leaves that the Aussies could afford to leave, if that makes sense. Like, i.e., they weren't being forced into full shots, and when the Aussies did play their shots, they scored runs. So, I guess the 34% leaves tracks with what I saw on day 1, in that we didn't bowl enough balls in that kind of corridor of uncertainty. There was too many balls that the Aussies could afford to leave, and they weren't chasing them. And yes, like I say, yes, we stuck manfully to the task, and yes, we largely speaking bowled very disciplined lines, but I just don't feel there was enough balls bowled that challenged the stumps or in the corridor of uncertainty that would make an Aussie nick off. Don't get me wrong, we beat the bat. From time to time in every session, there were 2 or 3 balls that beat the bat, and on another day, maybe they would have got some wickets. Labuschagne slashed at one, which just evaded Jason Holder. Was that off Kemar Roach? I think it was off Kemar Roach, and that was just after the fall of the second wicket. So Khawaja fell when it was 151 for 2, and then moments later, Roach induced an edge or a kind of wild shot from, Roach induced one, induced Labuschagne into going after one outside the off stump. And I think Holder saw it late. I still think Holder should have got a hand to it. Doesn't mean he should have caught it because it went quickly. But I think if it had been bang bang and Labuschagne went straight after Khawaja, then it would have really put the match on a bit of a knife edge at that point. But obviously, Labuschagne rolled his luck, and he made full haze, now on 150, not out as a result. In terms of the bowlers' performances, so Kemar Roach, 18 overs, 3 maidens, none for 59, economy of 3.27. Jaden Seals, as I expected, he bowled better than these figures that I'm about to give you. 14 overs, 3 maidens, 1 for 63, economy of 4.5. Jaden actually bowled much better than that, and he forced he beat the bat, and there was one over in particular where he made Labuschagne really uncomfortable, 2 false strokes, etc., lucky fours, etc. So I feel like Jaden Seals actually bowled better than those figures suggest. Alzari Joseph, 15 overs, 3 maidens, none for 46, economy 3.06. Carl Mayers should have been bowled more, in my mind. 11 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 24, economy of 2.18. I actually think that Carl Mayers was the pick of the bowlers in terms of I felt like he was asking more questions because of his ability to bowl the wobble ball and induce and kind of get a tiny bit of swing off the surface. I thought Kyle should have maybe got a few more overs than 11. Obviously, we don't want to over bowl him, but I just felt we could have utilized him a bit more. Jason Holder looks like he was the pick of the bowlers. 16 overs, 6 maidens, none for 29, economy 1.81. So obviously, just on the kind of surface of the figures, it looks like Jason was the pick of the bowlers, and in some respects he was. Do I think Jason asked enough questions of the batters? Stick with me here, people, because I'm not being critical. I'm not actually criticizing Jason. I thought he bowled well. He obviously kept it exceptionally tight and built pressure, but I wouldn't say that he necessarily... I can definitely think of one peach delivery that kissed the surface and took off and just beat the outside edge, but there weren't many of them, if you see what I mean. He just kept it extraordinarily tight. Ruston Chase, 15 overs, 2 maidens, none for 63, economy 4.20. I didn't think Chase was good. I think the Aussies feasted on him. I need to be careful, because am I saying that because I'm biased? I don't think so. I just don't think Chase was effective. And we'll know how effective Chase was when Nathan Lyon comes on to bowl. I suspect Nathan Lyon will be taking wickets when he comes on to bowl on day 2 or day 3, more likely, and day 4, if we get that far. So, I mean, Chase was manful and he stuck to the job. I just don't think... Again, everybody bowled. In fairness, let me give Chase his due. Everybody from Roach to Seals to Joseph to Mayers to Holder to Chase bowled, even Brathwaite actually in his 1 over. Everybody bowled a delivery that beat an outside edge or caused some kind of serious whooping behind the stumps of, oh, Jesus, nearly got him type thing. But nobody did that anywhere near consistently enough to suggest we were always going to take wickets. But that's not to say that the bowlers weren't disciplined. On the whole, the West Indies bowling attack was very, very disciplined, and they stuck to their job well. Phil Simmons said that at the close of play, he said we bowled well, but I just didn't feel that luck went our way. And I think there's some merit to that statement. If we use that Kimar Roach example where Labuschagne slashed at one and Holder just failed to reach out his big mitt and take it, then yeah, I get where Phil's coming from. And like I say, there were enough examples straight off the top of my head where I can say, yeah, we beat the outside edge, and maybe on another day the Aussies nick them, but they didn't. So as things currently stand, in spite of the West Indian bowlers bowling to the plan, I think they did bowl to plan. The scorecard is still the scorecard: 90 overs, 293 for 2. The only other thing I would say about day 1 is that I did feel that the Aussie commentators, I think it's Gilchrist is on comms, Mark Waugh is on comms, is it Gary O'Keefe? Brian Lara is on comms. I'm missing out another Aussie guy. I can't remember who. But at one point, they were cussing out Craig Brathwaite, and saying, he's being too aggressive with his field placings. And I just want to talk about that. When they were saying Brathwaite was being too aggressive with his field placings, because for a lot of, at least 2/3 of the day, we had like 3 or 4 in the slip cordons. Listen, let me just publicly say now, I got no issue with that. And the reason why I've got no issue with that is because I've lived through, in the last 10 years of Test cricket, West Indies Test cricket, days where we just surrender meekly and we're already on the defensive long before, like really early into the first day, second day, whatever it might be. I had no problem whatsoever with Craig Brathwaite trusting his bowlers and putting overly attacking fields in place to try and get a wicket. Like, what did you want him to do? Just go on the defensive and basically realize, well, boy, We ain't getting no wickets today. Still, it's too difficult to prize these Aussie batsmen out. So let's just stop them getting runs. I hear that. But for me, that's too defeatist. I liked the fact that Craig was searching for wickets. He was trying to get ahead of the game. He was trying to force something to happen. It didn't work. On another day, it might have done. Now, obviously, some of you will listen to that and say, no, Mash, we're not saying he should have been more defensive. Some will say he should have just found a middle ground between defense and attack. But I'm ultimately saying that I had no issue with him being aggressive in his field settings and trying to create something and try to induce an edge and try to take wickets. I'd rather a West Indian captain be that 9 times out of 10 than us just go on the defensive and try to stop runs being scored because we think we're going to get beat. So I just wanted to kind of just talk on that. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's day 1. Looking ahead to day 2, like I say, which starts in about 4 hours or just about 4 hours from now or under 4 hours. What do we want? We need an early wicket. 90 overs have been bowled, so we're still only like 9 overs into the new ball. We need an early wicket in the first hour of the day's play. If we don't get an early wicket on day 2, you can probably already assume that Australia are going to absolutely make hay for the remainder of the day. You would expect that Steve Smith will score a century as well. Labuschagne might go on to a double. And I think if we don't make early inroads, I expect, like I said at the top of the show, I expect the Aussies to get to just after tea. Let me think. 90 runs per over, 90 runs per session minimum. So they're looking at 180. That would take them to about 180 would take them to about 480. Yeah, so I think the Aussies will bat all day or want to bat all day up until the last hour of play. I think they'll declare somewhere between 500 and 550, and then we'll have a tricky last hour to try and not lose any wickets. That's what I predict will happen. But in an ideal world, we make something happen early on day 2, and then we start to chip away at the Aussies. So what they deem as their ideal situation, setting like 550 and declaring, instead we turn into all out for 450. That would be a really good day for West Indies if we can restrict them from 293 for 2 to 450 all out. Obviously, anything under 450 would be fantastic. But I think more likely, given how the pitch is playing, that would be something to aim for. Let's try and bowl them out for 450 or less. But there's going to be some hard yards to have to run for that to happen. And we're going to have to manage our bowling resources carefully. As much as I feel that Kyle Mayer should have bowled a bit more on day 1, he's going to have to bat in this test match. Similarly, Jason Holder. So we do not want to bowl them into the ground, knowing that they're going to have to be crucial in our first innings when it comes to bat. But people, hopefully you watch this before kind of settling yourself down for day 2 of the test match. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And yeah, I'll get back to you in the comments, and I'll be over on Twitter doing some kind of play-by-play on Twitter. Might jump on the Twitter Spaces, I don't know. But catch me on Twitter during day 2 of the test match. And until the next show, take care, people. I'll see you then.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.